Ibn Qayyim says, rahimahullah ta'ala, the shaitan begins by calling the slave of Allah to worship. To worship? Yes, to worship. Why to worship? He calls you towards an act of worship that is not greater in the sight of Allah than the act of worship that you already do. So for example, you're praying your salah in the masjid. And we know that the one who prays his salah in the masjid, he gets 25 or 27 greater reward than the one who prays at home. So a person praying in the masjid, the shaitan wants to distract him and call him towards praying at home. So what does he do? He calls him towards an act of worship. And he tells him, learn your hifz of Quran. And complete your hifz of Quran, even if it be you missing your salah in the masjid. It doesn't matter, pray at home. He calls you towards another act of worship that is not greater in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Once he has managed to do this, he then calls the slaves of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala towards permissible actions to the extent that the heart is engulfed and entrapped by permissible actions. So he calls the slaves of Allah Jalla wa Ala to love and to follow football to the extent that everything he does, everything he wants is football. Or to the female slave of Allah Jalla wa Ala towards shopping or other things that distract them from the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Permissible actions. But permissible actions that overcome the heart and overcome the mind. After he has done this, he has made you leave some greater action in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He calls the slaves of Allah Jalla wa Ala towards actions that are disliked in the sight of Allah. Not haram, but disliked. Thereafter he calls the slaves of Allah Jalla wa Ala towards minor sins. So he follows and he commits minor sins. And he understands this minor, so he follows a temptation of the shaitan, commits a minor sin and makes tawbah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Does the same, makes tawbah to Allah Jalla wa Ala. The shaitan then opens the doors for other minor sins until the slave commits minor sins upon minor sins. He gathers them all together. Now that his heart has black dots, the shaitan is ready to introduce something greater. You see how he worked? He began with a heart that was white. He distracted it from ibadah and called it towards things that were permissible, things that were disliked. Minor sins, the heart has a black dot. He called towards more minor sins, the heart is now getting covered in black and darkness. Until the shaitan then calls towards a major sin. And his goal of the major sin is not that sin. His goal for a major sin is a doubt that he's now going to bring. Because when a heart is covered in darkness, when a heart is engulfed in major sins, it now becomes tilted. As the Prophet ﷺ said, it is black, it is dark, it is dusty, it is tilted. It is in the greatest opportunity it can ever be to accept a doubt. And this is why the slaves of Allah Jalla wa Ala who contemplate leaving Islam or have many misconceptions about the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or are on the verge of having great doubts about the deen of Allah, they all have something in common. And what is that thing in common? They all are companions of major sins. They all are companions of sins. Every single one of them. For the heart becomes dark, the heart becomes dusty, the heart becomes tilted. The heart is upside down, it is ready. It is prepared to accept a doubt. The very same person that used to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the very same person that used to fulfill these obligations and shun away the temptations, his heart would never accept the doubt. But the doubt is ready to settle into the heart of the one who commits sins. And when the doubt settles in the heart, do we find a person leaving the fold of Islam entirely? The kaid of the shaitan, the traps of the shaitan, the plots of the shaitan are many. But Allah Jalla wa Ala is Al-Aziz. Allah Jalla wa Ala is Al-Jabbar. Allah Jalla wa Ala is Al-Mutakabbir. Allah Jalla wa Ala is Al-Qawi. He is the one who is ever powerful, the master, the creator of the heavens and the earth. The one who looks after the greatest source of help, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And He has promised us, Jalla wa Ala, that if we stick to His particular steps and we master them, He will make sure that we withstand every single call of the shaitan, be it from the avenue of temptations or be it from the avenue of doubts and desires. So what are these steps?